Yes, before we begin, how about we just get an idea of who's on the line there, because some of the names came up, but there are some that say call-in user. So let me just read down the list. I'm Jenny from the Central Ohio Collaborative. Alice Hull is from the Central Ohio Collaborative. Betsy Townsend is from the Cincinnati Collaborative. And then we have, I'll go down to Christy Wilt, Dave Davey, Heather Stark, Jason Fallon, Karen O'Neill, Kitty Morton-Epler, Linda Ramey, Sue Alexander, Vicki, help me with the last name?
Ciotti.
Ciotti. So if I didn't read your name, can you please tell us who you are, because you're under call-in user.
This is Ruth Lapp, L-A-P-P.
Thank you, Ruth. Anybody else I didn't read your name? Okay.
Some of the people maybe, just called in first and then logged in, so their phone is next to the anonymous, but their name is down farther. You know what I mean?
Great. Kitty, were you able to get online to see the pictures?
Well, I now have the little boy with the grasshopper.
Excellent.
Yay.
Yes.
Great. Then I think we're good to go. You want to make that a bigger screen, Alice, and we can get started?
There we go. If you need to use any of the other features, there's a little toolbar to your right, and don't be afraid to press anything.
Great. Well, hello, and welcome again to the Leave No Child Inside webinar. Again, my name is Jenny Morgan, and I'm the founder and co-chair of the Leave No Child Inside Central Ohio Collaborative.
And I'm Betsy Townsend, co-chair of the Leave No Child Inside Initiative in Greater Cincinnati. I'm also a board member of the Nature Network.
And I'm Alice Hull, the co-chair of the Central Ohio Collaborative, and I have a stuffy nose today, so I'm sorry about that.
So thanks again so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. In our call today, we will be sharing a short Leave No Child Inside presentation. And with it, we would like to accomplish a few specific goals. One, we will give you a clear idea of what to expect at our April 9th meeting. Two, you will learn more about the Leave No Child Inside movement that has become really an international groundswell to get our children back outside and reconnected with nature. Three, you will learn how and why the Leave No Child Inside message is being embraced by governors, health officials, educators, developers, parents, and many others, and how it is being integrated into a myriad of initiatives here in Ohio and throughout the world to improve our children's health, save parks and nature camps, improve education, urban development, and much more. And lastly, with our webinar today, we want to invite you to join the Ohio Leave No Child Inside movement. We are confident that once you learn more about the message, you will see the power and potential it has to move a variety of issues forward, issues that many of you work on every day, from the fight against childhood obesity and other childhood diseases to the ongoing battle to save Ohio parks and traditional nature camps, raising test scores, to creating the innovators and workers that will issue in the Ohio green economy. By the end of our call, we want you to walk away with an understanding of a few key points. A, that Leave No Child Inside is an international movement, not a program. B, that the goal of Leave No Child Inside is to create deep cultural change so that our children and students will be allowed and encouraged to go outside again each and every day to play, to learn, to dream, and to just be in nature. And finally, one more key point. A major strength of Leave No Child Inside is that it is based on a growing body of scientific research that proves frequent and direct contact with nature is essential to children's healthy development. So these are the goals and key points. There will be a lot of information in our presentation, so we'll look forward to your questions after we finish. And now I'd like to turn it over to Betsy Townsend, who will give you an abbreviated 101 course, if you will, on the Leave No Child Inside movement.
Thanks, Jenny. Well, our movement began in 2005, shortly after the publication of this book, where author Richard Louv contrasts the indoor sedentary lifestyle of today's children with the active outdoor experiences of children in previous generations. And in fact, that is the type of childhood that generations throughout all of human history experienced. But in the span of the last 30 years or so, there have been major shifts in American culture and in our lifestyles. For example, the average American child of today spends more than 7.5 hours plugged into electronics. That includes televisions, computers, games, texting. And a second significant change that influences this is that 75% of children under the age of 6 are in some form of child care, and 55% of those are in child care centers, many of which have little or no green space. So often these children are spending very little time in unstructured outdoor play activities. We all know that today's children are at risk, and in fact, some experts believe that they may have a shorter life expectancy than their parents. We're all aware of the obesity epidemic, but today's kids also suffer from many more mental health issues than previous generations. So Richard Louv suspected that there might be a link between the decline in our kids' physical, mental, and emotional health and the fact that today's children spend very little time in unstructured outdoor play. Now, if you grew up before 1980, like Richard and like me, you probably spent most of your free time playing outside with your friends. You were making up games, you were discovering things around your yard and your neighborhood, maybe you built something like a fort. So not only did the kids of generations past get a ton of physical exercise, but we also used our imaginations. We learned to get along with others, and we even got an education without even realizing it. Just as an example of that, you probably knew what a lever was before you knew what it was called because you were out in your yard digging up rocks with a stick. So Richard wondered if his concerns about childhood today were founded in fact. So he collected research from all over the world about play and nature and how it impacts a child's development. His book presents scientific evidence of what most of us know intuitively, and that is that play in a natural outdoor setting is good for kids. It's just that as a society, we really haven't had to give that much thought. Who would have thought 40 years ago that we would need research to convince people that children should play outside? People would have just laughed at the idea. But this new lifestyle that we have crept almost unnoticed into our culture, and now it's so ingrained in our culture that we even now see health professionals suggesting a $300 Wii game rather than simply telling kids to go outside and play. Now, we're not naive, and we know that there's obstacles to that for many kids, we'll address those later. But when this book was published, it made a lot of people realize what the children of today have lost. So what does the research say? Well, we have just a short time here today, so we're not going to be able to go into great detail on this. I'm hoping that you will all take a look at the Children in Nature website that you'll see listed here in a minute to learn more about this. But briefly, the research says that we instinctively know, and that is that kids who play outside are more active, they're more creative, they're more confident, they're more civil to each other, and they're less stressed. Research also shows that kids learn a lot more than you might expect from nature. And this particular study, called Closing the Achievement Gap, is a landmark study that was first released in 1998. The results of this have been confirmed in two subsequent studies in 2000 and 2005, showing that schools which use nature-based experiential education produce significant student gains in social studies, science, language arts, and math. So in a nutshell, the research says that children are happier, healthier, and smarter when they connect with nature. And as I said earlier, if you look at the Children in Nature website, you'll see a really nice abbreviated listing of those research papers with links where you can go for an executive summary and the actual papers. So almost immediately upon its release, Richard was contacted by people from all over the country wondering what was being done to help solve what's become known as nature deficit in children. Independently, grassroots initiatives sprung up all over the country with people working to reconnect children with nature, and there are now more than 70 of these. It's important to note, though, that this really is a movement. It is not a program, as Jenny said earlier. These initiatives all have different names. What they have in common is working towards a cultural change. And, in fact, we believe that it's the birthright of all children to experience regular play in nature. So the focus of most of these initiatives is to raise awareness and to work towards reconnecting kids with nature. Here in Ohio, we have 5 Leave No Child Inside collaboratives. Greater Cincinnati and Central Ohio are very well established, and they include nearly 100 organizations and reach many more. We also have new initiatives that have just formed in Northeast and Northwest Ohio. So you'll see those established groups in green on this map. We also have one just forming in Dayton, that's shown in purple. And we have people working independently in more rural parts of the state, shown here in blue. I think it's important also to say that even though this touches on an environmental message, it's not really an environmental issue. It's a child development issue. And it's a movement that crosses many boundaries. It touches on health, education, regional planning, and obviously parks and natural resources. But one of the unique things about the movement is that it brings together people and organizations who don't ordinarily work together. For example, Republicans and Democrats, developers and environmentalists all want their children and their grandchildren to experience the connection with nature that was so important to them and to generations of children before them. So we're going to give you just a few examples of how diverse an audience has heard and responded to this message. Our former Department of the Interior Secretary Dirk Kempthorne was a Republican. He walked into a meeting a few years ago with Richard Loeb's book under his arm and said that he wanted reconnecting children with nature to be his legacy. And that dream has been fulfilled by his successor, Ken Salazar, who's a Democrat, in the recent establishment of the National Office of Youth and Natural Resources. Another more unlikely candidate here is the American Academy of Pediatrics, which has asked Richard Loeb to keynote at the 2010 conference with 5,000 pediatricians expected to be in attendance. So it's gotten attention from the mainstream medical community as well. And perhaps even more unexpectedly, Richard Loeb was told by the CEO of Sesame Street Workshop that the book was directly responsible for their show's new focus, where they celebrate their 40th anniversary with a new set and a 2-year curriculum called My World is Green and Growing. Another example on the legislative front is that we have a No Child Left Inside Act, which would provide funding to state departments of education with environmental literacy plans in place. So here in Ohio, we're in the process of putting together an environmental literacy plan. And this legislation originally passed the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, in September of 2008 with strong bipartisan support, and work is now being done to include it in the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Also, environmental literacy was just included for the first time in the U.S. Department of Education budget. And then, lastly, this movement has also received attention from the professional journals and organizations to which many of you belong. Just a few examples of these in the education field are from Connect and Educational Leadership magazines, also articles in Young Child, which is the professional journal of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and also in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. So, in short, it touches on the work that all of you are doing. And now Alice is going to share some examples of the work that some of you are already doing here in Ohio.
Thanks very much, Betsy. I just wanted to, before I start my section, mention that if you have us on speakerphone, if you could take us off, it would kind of add to everyone's listening experience. I think we're getting some background noise in there. And if you want, you can even go to that little picture of the two people on your little toolbar and find yourself and click on yourself, and you can mute yourself if you wish to do it that way, or just use the settings on your phone.
Alice?
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Alice?
Yes.
It's really great stuff. I just got on the phone. We couldn't get me online here. So I'm just checking in to say hello, and just go right ahead. I'll just be a good listener.
Okay, thanks a lot. So after hearing the background information from Betsy, a question arises, whose issue is this anyway? So we've used an example from nature here, a picture of a spider web, to show how different areas that relate to topics of importance in our state also relate to each other in the Leave No Child Inside movement. And with strong anchors holding the web up in each area, we can support happier, healthier, and smarter children. We have seen in our work that in many cases, children's education and health can be improved at the same time. And frequently, these successes spill over into transportation, development, family services, and the success of our parks. What is needed in Ohio is high-level leadership to spread these successes, as well as inspire cultural change within state government, within the private and nonprofit sectors, and within families. Why do we need a cultural change? Because people don't do the right thing just because it's good for them. If we did, no one would eat junk food, smoke cigarettes, ride motorcycles, or anything else like that. If we want our children to change, they have to fall in love with something different. What we have in natural places is something free that children can fall in love with. Once they're hooked, it's easy to translate those experiences into gains in health and academics. Not only that, my aim is to show you how such a change in thinking can save resources in the work that all of us do. The outdoors can solve a lot of challenges faced by schools, from student health to test scores, and from costly busing to stewardship of public land. I have a great example of how this can happen, and it starts out with a negative. Because of a failed levy last fall, a school district in the central Ohio area, the Reynoldsburg district, had to cut all its busing. A program called Safe Routes to School, which many of you might be familiar with, helps with safe and healthy ways for children to walk and bike to school. But the teachers in the district had to think outside the box to figure out how to fulfill their STEM grant requirements without taking any field trips. As it turned out, almost every elementary school in that district was within walking distance of the same river. Now third graders from all over this district are regularly making the trek in all seasons to Black Lake Creek. Now imagine before these budget cuts telling third grade teachers that they would walk their classes 10 to 15 minutes to get to a creek. This surely would not have flown. But in this case, dwindling resources actually worked to open their minds and push them toward a new and better solution. And you can bet the students are getting healthier, learning more, and learning to love the outdoors. There's no reason why the walks to the river in Reynoldsburg can't be replicated all over Ohio. Thanks to our broad base of members and partners, and a little help from Google Earth, identifying nearby nature for every school and child care center can be a reality. And we're currently helping to write this nearby nature piece into Ohio's environmental literacy plan as we work together with the Ohio Department of Education, Department of Natural Resources, Ohio EPA, Environmental Education Council of Ohio, and other partners that we're working with on that project. Next, I'm just going to show you a quick quote from one of our partners and a member of our steering team here in Central Ohio, and I'll give you a minute to read that. Anyone who's visited the governor's residence or any other community garden knows the value of gardens for teaching, improving a neighborhood, and providing a safe place to play and burn calories. Across Ohio, low-cost gardens are cropping up on vacant lots and on school grounds because of the efforts of nonprofit partners in each city. This is a perfect example of 21st century education, where community organizations help to increase the effectiveness of public schools. We have another reason for wanting to see more school and community gardens. We realize that for many children, it is impossible for them to experience the free-range childhood of the 1950s. But that doesn't mean they have to spend their days tethered to an electrical outlet. School and community gardens are just one of the ways in which today's children can experience nature. And here's a quick quote that I'll give you a moment to read also. And if you didn't find that quote inspiring enough, here's another one from Michelle Obama.
Woohoo!
And this statement about businesses wanting to locate to, healthy areas that don't have high obesity, obviously applies to Ohio, which is always trying to attract new business and is frequently ranked among the least healthy states. Of course, the same sentiment can apply to businesses that are reluctant to locate in areas with poor schools, which is always a consideration also. And the beauty of this movement and of, outdoor play and education is that it improves health and our schools at the same time. Let's talk about camps and parks for a moment. Yes, they offer opportunity for education and physical activity, but camps and parks offer a place as much as they offer events. And a sense of place is extremely important. It's what makes people not want to move away, or what makes them come back home. Explore the Outdoors, an Ohio Department of Natural Resources program, is a terrific example of how the Leave No Child Inside message can make the work of state and other nonprofits more effective. This program, which rewards children for completing outdoor skill activities, has built great bridges with county and municipal parks by working together on a project which also involved the American Heart Association, the schools that distributed the booklets, private sponsors such as Coleman Camping Products, and organizations including Leave No Child Inside. Ultimately, there's been an uptick in the use of state lands and campgrounds, and that is a revenue generator, of course, as well as just good news in general. And here's the proof that that happened. Unstructured play in nature, although frequently overlooked, is the simplest, easiest solution to many of our pressing problems, and it's free. It is not a program. Instead, it is a cultural shift in thinking as people realize what we're in danger of losing. With our current existence, where families are frequently going from the indoors, getting in the car, driving to a scheduled activity, getting back in the car, and then going back inside. We've already talked about how the desire to reconnect children with nature has broad bipartisan support. It can be a powerful tool for garnering support for many of our initiatives and the work that all of us are doing. For example, unstructured outdoor play is one of the best and cheapest forms of exercise, so it ties to every obesity program in Ohio, including the Healthy Ohio program and the Ohio Physical Activity Plan. Play also improves brain function, especially nature play that almost always leads to exploring and questioning, so it relates to the work of all of you in the education field. Play improves mental health, too, and makes families stronger. Unstructured outdoor play usually leads to an increase in biking and walking as a means of transportation, supporting programs like Safe Routes to School. Play increases the attendance at our parks, camps, and independent nature programs. It also makes our neighborhoods safer and more attractive to businesses and families. Could it really be this simple? Let's listen to Barb Steckler of Columbus Public Health, who grew up in New York City and now has the job of making Columbus a more active and attractive city for young people. I'll give you a moment to read that. As I wind up my section of this presentation, I want to talk about a phenomenon called the tipping point, which you may be familiar with from Malcolm Gladwell's book by the same name. There's a theory that if you're able to convince 17% of the population of a way of thinking or an opinion, that way of thinking can become self-sustaining. For example, the movement to curb cigarette smoking. This was not born of one agency or government department, but with many different efforts coalescing. There are things we can do among ourselves that lead to a tipping point of cultural change on the issue of indoor sedentary childhood. there are still barriers to overcome, so we need to work together to reach this point. So in summary, this circle shows how the Leave No Child Inside movement supports and connects the work of many Ohio agencies, organizations, state departments, nonprofits. With this movement's ability to bring people together in unified collaboration, there are opportunities for us to bring support and advocacy for your work. And although we have much to offer you, we would also like to enlist your support in increasing public awareness of the importance of nature to healthy childhood development, and in making certain that the people and organizations who develop policy and programs are aware of it, so that information can be incorporated into their decision-making. I'm going to turn it over now to Jenny Morgan, who will talk about how we arrived at convening the April 9th meeting and what to expect on that day. Jenny?
Thanks, Alice. In the final part of our presentation, I'll share our vision and goals for our April 9th gathering, as well as for the related fall event that we're planning as a follow-up to April 9th. These two events are closely tied together, and I'll explain how and why. First, April 9th. April 9th is a statewide call to action. As Betsy mentioned, our children are now spending 7.5 hours a day, and that's outside of school, plugged into their electronics. The average child now only spends 4 to 7 minutes playing outside. Many see this as an indoor epidemic, as our children, of course, suffer from all the things that Betsy and Alice mentioned: obesity, underdeveloped muscles and coordination, vitamin D deficiency, weak bones. The list goes on and on. Many children don't even venture out into their own backyards anymore. They don't bike or walk to school. Recess is being eliminated or greatly reduced. And in many cases, our children are too overscheduled to even have time for unstructured outdoor play. Every day, it seems, we're also losing more and more of our neighborhood natural play spaces, as well as our beloved parks and our traditional nature camps that, of course, have been around for generations, since the early 1900s. Luckily, people all over the world are taking action to reverse this indoor sedentary trend. There are now 71 Leave No Child Inside leadership campaigns around the country. Betsy touched on that. Some of the most exciting work involves collaborations between states and non-governmental entities. For example, in 2007, Governor Rendell of Pennsylvania held a 3-day nature conference with 300 participants to explore how to maintain and strengthen Pennsylvania's connection with nature. He then created a 16-member task force and held public meetings on the subject, and that's the cover page of the task force report there on the left. In 2008, Governor O'Malley of Maryland signed an executive order forming the Partnership for Children in Nature, a coalition of state, local, private, and nonprofit partners. The Children in Nature Coalition is co-chaired by the state school superintendent and Secretary of Natural Resources. This group created and released Maryland's Children and Nature Action Plan for 2010, and that's the cover page there in the middle. Also, in 2009, former Governor Sebelius of Kansas signed her own executive order to form the Kansas Coalition for Children in Nature to create opportunities for children to experience nature. And now Governor Parkinson, her successor, is carrying out this executive order. The actions that Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Kansas have taken are very inspiring indeed. And we wanted to do something similar here in Ohio. But we thought, why wait for an executive order? After all, the great news about the Ohio movement, as Betsy mentioned, is that there is a very strong Leave No Child Inside grassroots presence. Over 100 organizations are already involved, and these numbers are growing every day. We've held summits, formed partnerships, done keynote speaking, and much, much more. So to take the next step to develop an Ohio Children in Nature Action Plan is not a big step to take. And the preliminary development of this plan is the primary goal of the April 9th meeting. Here are the specifics. On the 9th, you will join with state, local, and nonprofit leaders from all over Ohio to take part in discussions with a professional facilitator who is an expert on cultural change and social movement. How do we get to the tipping point on this issue? How do we create, or recreate really, an outdoor culture in Ohio? We've invited you because each and every one of you influences the ability of children to connect with nature in some way. On April 9th, we would like for you to come and share what your organizations are currently doing to connect children with nature, to learn what your peers are doing, and to also share what barriers need to be addressed. We will discuss concrete action steps and or recommendations that have arisen out of our discussions. The day will be very participatory, and there will be opportunities for you to network with your peers and with others who may prove to be unconventional allies. By the end of the day, our goal is to have a preliminary outline of the steps we need to take in order to reach the tipping point that will lead to cultural change. This plan will likely include things as simple as sharing information with your colleagues and constituents, and as complex as how to integrate safe, natural play spaces into urban planning. And of course, becoming familiar with other plans that might overlap this work so that we aren't reinventing the wheel will be a priority. This information sharing is certainly one advantage of collaborative work. I hope this gives you an idea of what to expect on it. Now, just briefly onto the second event that we're planning. This event will take place in the fall of 2010. 3 possible dates: Friday, September 24th, Friday, October 1st, or Friday, October 8th. We'll choose a date very soon. This will be a publicity event and a time to celebrate the work being done all over Ohio on this issue. We'll invite the media and all who are passionate about children and nature. It'll be a celebration and a time to announce progress made on the Children and Nature Action Plan. Now, many times throughout our webinar, we have repeated that this is a movement, not a program. We hope to engage each and every one of you in this movement. Some of you will want to stay engaged in these discussions, either at the state or local level, and we'll invite you to be involved at whatever level you are able. But most importantly, we want you to leave the April 9th event armed with the information valuable to the work of your organization and having made connections with others who may become your allies. And in the fall, we will want to celebrate with you. In conclusion, I want to come full circle with our presentation and ask Alice to bring up the picture that we started with, the one of the young man. There he is. I'd like to end with a quick personal story as we reflect on this picture. I work with little ones at the Columbus School for Girls, a school right outside downtown Columbus. I'm the aftercare director in the program for young children. As you know, we had a pretty incredible winter this year in Ohio, and much to my dismay, the kids and I had to spend an inordinate amount of time inside because it was so cold. But every day at 5 o'clock, we at least were able to take a little jaunt outside when we packed up our backpacks and we walked across the courtyard to join the elementary aftercare program. So one day last February at 5 o'clock, we opened the door and we walked outside and across the courtyard. The sun was setting behind us, and the sky was absolutely breathtaking, filled with beautiful pink and orange streaks and white billowing clouds. And just as we got halfway across the courtyard, one of my little ones, a 4-year-old who was walking right beside me, looked up and with a face filled with wonder said, "Miss Morgan, you know what? It's really big out here. The sky is so big." And I looked up, and I looked down at her precious little face, and I said, "You're right. It is very big." And then I thought to myself, that about sums it up. Indoor life, virtual life, the kind of life this young man and almost every other child in the United States is living today is so small, so constricting, two-dimensional, limited, and limiting. While the natural world is just as the little one said, so big. Won't you please join us in helping to get our children, our families, and our students unplugged, back outside, and re-engaged with the big world? Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. We're looking forward to seeing you on April 9th. We'd be happy to take any and all questions. Otherwise, feel free to disconnect from the webinar, and thanks again.
If you want to, thanks. If you want to ask a question, you'll have to unmute yourself if you hadn't muted yourself, or we won't be able to hear your question. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
It's Sandy in Sylvania. I was wondering, do you have a transcript of what was just done?
We recorded it, Sandy. So we have we have that, and of course, we have the actual presentation here that I'm sure Alice, with her technological, abilities, be able to give you.
I guess what I was thinking is I have, several people coming with me on the 9th, but not everybody got to do the webinar. And I thought it would be nice if we had a written transcript of what went on somehow, maybe by the 9th at the meeting.
Yes, we can send you the script that we work off of, and then we can also send you a link where you should be able to just play it, and it'll show you the slides, and you will be able to hear a recording of our voices.
Oh, that is great. That is great. I did want to tell you, without trying to hog time, that Sister Rosine of Lord's College, Life Lab, said she listened to this and felt it extremely refreshing and encouraging, and was in shock as to how much is actually going on out there. We know so little about what everyone else is doing, so communicating is really important.
Oh, thanks for that feedback, Sandy.
Good.
Thank you.
She'll be coming, too, so you'll have a chance to meet her personally.
I would second that if we could get not only the transcript, but I think it would be helpful to have, I assume you're going to put the PowerPoint on the website or something maybe, so that some of that's available so we can tie the pieces together, the transcript and the points that you were emphasizing in the PowerPoint. That would all be very helpful.
Okay, we'll definitely try to do that.
No,
That shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 9th.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great
See you on the
presentation. I
9th.
agree.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you.
So this is Dave Devi. Coming in. What do you, or what would you, are there anything specific you would like us to bring with us to this meeting besides our curiosity and our care? And is there any kind of, I guess I don't really know. I'm not even sure what what specifics I'm asking, but is there, other than our presence, what do you want us to be prepared to do?
Well, this is Betsy Townsend, and you will be getting an agenda. We'll be sending it out the Monday before with some directions and that kind of information. But you'll see that the process that we're following, as Jenny said, is very participatory, and we'll be beginning by asking everyone to share their best ideas and what their agency, their organization, or their department is currently doing to reconnect children with nature. And so if you would like to bring any materials with you that demonstrate that, you can feel free to do that. We are encouraging people to be eco-friendly and thoughtful about what they bring, and so we don't have tons and tons of paper. But
Sure. Well, I'm in the process of collecting information from various people in our organization to see what best practices and things are. We're trying to come together to come with some information in hand. But I guess the hearing that you're going to send us an agenda beforehand is helpful, certainly. Okay, that's good.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
any other questions?
Hey guys, it's Christy. I didn't know if this is the appropriate format for this, or if we can maybe talk at another time, but just thought maybe we could regroup. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our approach and what we're asking for, I guess.
Great.
Okay, why don't we maybe call you right back on that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I don't know if anybody else is still on the line or if you want to call me back.
You can stay on a little bit longer, maybe we can.
Sure.
Great. I think, are there any other questions? I think everybody might be actually logged off.
I'm on still, but I can log off if you'd like me to.
Is there anybody else? All right. So it's Alice, Betsy, Christy, and Jenny, and Sandy is the leader of the collaborative up in Northwest Ohio.
Right. I wanted to say that you don't have all of our counties marked in green. We could do more. I have 21 that I've been contacting.
Oh, great. Okay.
And I know we talked about it in Columbus, and you went, oh, you've got more than that, and we'll have to change our map. But, I mean, it still looks really good. It's two whole lines of counties going across from west to east. But there are, I am in contact with 21 soil and waters, one in each county, and then any of the parks that are near there. So I will bring you an updated list, and you'll be able to see them so that you would know which ones to add. But it would make Northwest Ohio over twice as big as it already is.
Great.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah.
So if you want me to send that separately, I can just send you a little email after we get off the phone and list them, and then you can, maybe somehow readjust that.
Yeah, that'll be great. I just made some adjustments to Central Ohio, so I'll look for that, and I'll make those changes.
All right, and I will just say goodbye now, and thanks, gals, and I'll be there with bags of bagels, and 4 people are going to be in my car with me when we show up on the 9th, and thanks for everything. You have done so much. People have no idea what you have been going through.
Hey, Sandy, the 4 that you have in your car, are they registered? Because we're trying to get numbers for our luncheon.
Yes, I have, Maureen Shell, Sister Rosine, and Shayna Bracco. They just recently registered.
Oh, good.
And I may have 1 or 2 more, but I have checked the registration. Plus, I am bringing personal support from the chamber, the schools, and several other organizations in the Sylvania area, and I will have the leeway to report them as participants or supporters.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. I see Shannon and Maureen.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Sandy.
I'm going to pause the recording, okay?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.